On February 5, 2026, the world watched with bated breath as Donald Trump, seated in the gilded halls of Mar-a-Lago, picked up the phone to speak directly with Chinese President Xi Jinping, who was thousands of miles away in Beijing. The call was broadcast across international news networks, with analysts and citizens alike glued to their screens, aware that history might be unfolding in real time. This was no ordinary call. It was a last-ditch effort to ease rapidly escalating tensions between the US and China. The stakes were higher than ever, and the world's most powerful nations were teetering on the edge of a diplomatic crisis that could have far-reaching consequences. For months, relations had soured. Sharp rhetoric echoed from both capitals, and military maneuvers on land, sea, and air signaled a dangerous game of brinkmanship. News headlines blared warnings of a new Cold War, while both leaders made bold, uncompromising statements at public events, fueling uncertainty and anxiety worldwide. Trump, eyeing another presidential run and eager to reclaim his image as a master dealmaker, saw this moment as a chance to prove his leadership on the world stage. Meanwhile, Xi, facing mounting domestic pressure and a restless political climate, was determined to clarify China's red lines and assert his nation's interests without appearing weak. The stakes were enormous. A single misstep, a misunderstood phrase, or a moment of stubbornness could send global markets into chaos, disrupt fragile alliances, and even risk military confrontation. Investors, diplomats, and ordinary citizens around the world watched nervously, knowing that the outcome of this call could affect their lives in ways both immediate and profound. In Mar-a-Lago and the Great Hall of the People, every word was measured, every pause loaded with meaning. Advisors, on both sides, listened intently, ready to intervene or clarify at a moment's notice. The atmosphere was tense, with the weight of global expectations pressing down on everyone involved. This was diplomacy stripped to its core. Two leaders, two visions, one fragile phone line connecting them. There were no grand banquets or photo ops, just the raw, unfiltered exchange of ideas and intentions, with the fate of millions hanging in the balance. The US and China are rivals in every sphere: military, technology, ideology, but their economies are deeply intertwined. Trade, investment, and supply chains link the two nations in ways that make outright conflict unthinkable, yet competition inevitable. Could these two men, each under immense pressure from their own governments and people, find a way to manage their competition peacefully? Or would pride and politics push them toward confrontation? The outcome of this high-stakes conversation would shape not just the future of their nations, but the global order for decades to come. The world waited, hoping that dialogue would triumph over discord, and that diplomacy could still offer a lifeline in the most perilous of times. At the heart of the call was Taiwan, a small island with an outsized role in global politics. Its location, just off the coast of mainland China, has made it a focal point for decades of tension and uncertainty. Taiwan is widely considered the most volatile flashpoint in US-China relations, a place where the interests of two superpowers collide with potentially explosive consequences. During the call, Xi Jinping made China's stance unmistakable. Taiwan is a non-negotiable matter of sovereignty. For Beijing, the idea of an independent Taiwan is not just unacceptable, it's seen as a direct challenge to the legitimacy of the Chinese state. Xi warned Trump that any US support for Taiwanese independence would provoke a severe response, hinting at the possibility of military action or economic retaliation. The message was clear: China would not tolerate any move that could be interpreted as support for a separate Taiwanese identity. For China, reunification with Taiwan is about more than territory. It's a matter of national pride, a way to erase what they see as a century of humiliation at the hands of foreign powers, and to fulfill a long-standing promise to the Chinese people. For the United States, supporting Taiwan is about defending democracy, upholding international commitments, and maintaining regional stability in the face of growing Chinese assertiveness. Washington sees Taiwan as a vibrant democracy and a crucial partner in the Indo-Pacific. These opposing principles, sovereignty for China, democracy for the US, fuel constant friction, making compromise nearly impossible and raising the stakes of every diplomatic exchange. Xi's directness was a calculated move, designed to ensure Washington fully understood the risks of any policy shift. The Chinese leadership wants to leave no doubt about the seriousness of their intentions. Meanwhile, Taiwan remains in limbo, a thriving democracy, home to 23 million people living under the constant shadow of invasion and uncertainty about their future. Every decision made in Washington or Beijing has immediate, tangible consequences for the island's people, affecting everything from their security to their economy and daily lives. The call underscored a sobering reality. Taiwan is not just a local issue, but the world's most dangerous geopolitical fault line, where the future of the region, and perhaps the world, could be decided. Xi Jinping issued a blunt warning: U.S. arms sales to Taiwan must stop. He argued these sales embolden separatists and heighten the risk of conflict. For decades, the U.S. has armed Taiwan under the Taiwan Relations Act, seeing it as a defensive necessity. China views these sales as a direct violation of the One China principle and a provocation. Xi's message was clear: continued arms sales would have consequences, from sanctions to military escalation. The U.S. sees its support as deterrence. China sees it as interference. This fundamental security dilemma remains unresolved. The warning was a stark reminder: the path of arms sales leads toward confrontation. Beyond security, Trump and Xi discussed the tangled web of U.S.-China trade, a key topic. China's potential increase in American soybean purchases, a lifeline for U.S. farmers and a symbol of economic interdependence. Trump's trade war legacy loomed, but Xi's offer signaled a possible thaw. Even amid rivalry, both sides know economic decoupling would be disastrous. Leaders must balance national interests with the need for stable trade. The soybean discussion was a rare point of common ground. It showed that despite fierce competition, cooperation is still possible. Millions of livelihoods depend on this fragile partnership. Practical trade talks offered a glimpse of a more stable future, if both sides choose it. The call ranged far beyond bilateral issues, touching on global crises like Ukraine and Iran. The U.S. pressed China to use its influence with Russia to help end the war in Ukraine, a major point of contention. On Iran, both leaders recognized the stakes of nuclear proliferation and regional instability. China's role as a key oil buyer and UN Security Council member makes its cooperation vital. These discussions highlighted a reality: no major global issue can be solved without U.S.-China dialogue. Even as rivals, they share responsibility for global stability. The call was a reminder: when the world is on fire, even adversaries must talk. Their ability to find common ground could shape the fate of millions. Despite the gravity of the issues at stake, both sides emerged from the call with a surprising and unmistakable sense of optimism. In a world where tensions often dominate headlines, this positive tone was unexpected, especially given the recent history of strained relations and heated rhetoric between the two nations. President Trump described it as an excellent call, signaling not just satisfaction with the conversation, but also a clear openness to future engagement. His upbeat demeanor at the subsequent press conference sent a message to both domestic and international audiences that progress, however incremental, was possible. This upbeat tone was more than just a diplomatic nicety. It was a carefully crafted strategic move. By projecting optimism, both leaders aimed to calm jittery financial markets, reassure nervous allies, and build momentum for further rounds of diplomacy. The world was watching, and the stakes were high. On the other side, President Xi's official statements echoed a strong desire to manage differences and seek common ground. He emphasized the importance of dialogue and mutual respect, signaling to his own people and the international community that China, too, was committed to stability. Both leaders recognized the dangers of a total breakdown in communication. The risks of escalation, economic, political, and even military, were simply too great to ignore. Their willingness to keep talking even amid deep disagreements was a crucial step forward. Their mutual goodwill, however cautious and tentative, was a crucial outcome of the call. It demonstrated that despite profound differences, both sides could still find common ground and avoid the worst-case scenarios. The meeting showed that dialogue is still possible, even when the path forward seems uncertain. It was a reminder that diplomacy, though often slow and frustrating, remains the best tool for resolving complex international disputes. The positive tone was more than just political spin. It was a calculated step back from the brink. By choosing optimism, both sides signaled a willingness to de-escalate and search for solutions, rather than simply trading accusations. For now, both sides chose conversation over confrontation, dialogue over deadlock. The world took notice. hoping that this fragile optimism might lead to more concrete progress in the future. The world breathed a little easier, if only for a moment. In a time of uncertainty, even a brief pause in tensions can offer hope for a more stable and peaceful future. The Trump-Xi call was part of a broader diplomatic surge. Western leaders have been flocking to Beijing, seeking to reset relations after years of tension. Europe in particular is pursuing de-risking, reducing dependency on China without severing ties. On the same day, Xi also spoke with Vladimir Putin, underscoring China's central role in global power dynamics. Beijing is balancing its partnership with Moscow and its rivalry with Washington, a delicate act. The call reflected a new multipolar world where alliances are shifting and interdependence is unavoidable. Major powers are recalibrating strategies in a landscape of competition and cooperation. The Trump-Xi conversation was a key move on this global chessboard. It was an attempt to shape the rules in an increasingly uncertain world. The Trump-Xi call highlighted America's central foreign policy dilemma, balancing ties with Beijing and support for Taiwan. The U.S. officially recognizes the One China policy, but also arms and supports democratic Taiwan. Every move is scrutinized by both Beijing and Taipei, making for a delicate balancing act. Selling arms angers China, withholding them alarms Taiwan and U.S. lawmakers. Navigating this contradiction requires constant diplomatic finesse. The call was a real-time demonstration of this tightrope walk. The U.S. must reassure both sides, without tipping the balance. The stability of the Asia-Pacific and the world depends on getting it right. As the dust settles, the future of U.S.-China relations remains uncertain. The Trump-Xi call reopened a vital channel, but deep divisions persist over Taiwan, technology, and global leadership. The risk of miscalculation, especially in the Taiwan Strait, is ever present. Both sides must now turn words into action, building guardrails to prevent crisis. The U.S. faces the challenge of being both competitor and collaborator. Success depends on strategic discipline and strong alliances. The choices made in the coming months could mark a turning point or a pause before deeper conflict. The stakes are global. In the 21st century, the destinies of Washington and Beijing and the world are inseparably linked.